Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the episode 2 of the Cedral Brief. I am Tyler, I'm your host, and this is going to be the second rendition now of this little podcast. And today's going to be a little bit different because there's going to be no camera recording, there's going to be no YouTube video. It is just going to be sort of a daily update. And I think that's how I'm going to treat these little podcasts is once in a blue moon, one episode will be a video that will be uploaded to YouTube. It will be a little bit more in depth. There'll be a little bit more meat on the bone. And then more often, I will do daily updates or try to get updates out as frequently as I can about the crypto markets, about the markets in general, about AI, the technology space, etc., things like that. So today's going to be one of those daily updates. And it is an interesting one because any sort of gain we had yesterday in the crypto market is now dropped back again. I think yesterday when I made 001 of the Cedral Brief, we were up 3% on Bitcoin. Now we are down roughly 2% at $62,294. Ethereum is trading minus 1.13% from yesterday at $1,669. And Solana is currently trading at $65.76, down 1.5% from yesterday as well. And I have not seen Solana that low in a very long time. As someone who holds Solana, I wish I had more money to invest in it because this would just absolutely plummet my average price if I was able to dollar cost average in. But unfortunately, that ship has sailed. I do not have any dry powder left. I will be sitting on the sidelines waiting for the pump that we have all been praying for. So whether that comes or not, I'm not sure. I've been predicting the next month and then the next month, and then the next month since 2024. So as far as my market knowledge comes, my ability to predict the market, it is about as bad as it gets, I'd say. If it wasn't for Venice, shout out to Venice, my portfolio would not be looking so good. But luckily, I had a pretty decent amount of Venice at $1.50, and it, for those who know, did very well. So not too shabby, but we'll see how that goes. In the AI space, NVIDIA Nematron 3 Ultra has been released and has a lot of buzz around it. A lot of the AI, the local AI open source junkies are raving about it. They're saying that if you use Nematron the right way, it can act as frontier AI. It can be just as good if you know how to use it. And I'm not one of those people who knows how to use it. That's one of the difficulties with me is this is kind of like cars, in my opinion. Like, if I have a good enough car, I'll be able to drive it fast. But there's always the people who say, well, if you can't drive this car fast, it's because you don't know how to drive the car. And perhaps that is the perfect analogy to apply to myself and AI. I'd say that's pretty fair. I've never used Nematron. I don't have AI running locally, though I wish I did. And if I don't have any money to spend on Solana, I sure as heck don't have any money to buy GPUs with, especially as that price continues to climb. So for now, I'll be relying on the cloud and frontier models or, quote, next open source frontier models like the 2.6s, the Kimi K 2.6s of the world, and things like that can kind of come close. But I'm definitely not the guy who can use an open source model like Nematron and actually have a lot of success with it. And back over to the crypto side of the house, one of the things that's been bugging me over the past couple of weeks is the Clarity Act. When is this thing going to be passed? Is it going to be passed anytime soon? And is it just going to be a husk of what the Clarity Act should have been? It's kind of a disgusting display of American politics. You have lobbyists on behalf of crypto, and you have lobbyists on behalf of the big banks, and they're warring. You've got Jamie Dimon coming out, cussing out Brian Armstrong, who, what has Brian Armstrong ever done negatively except try to take away banks' deposits, essentially, because why would any human being earn 0.5% or less in a savings account or whatever account that the bank offers when they can earn 4.5% on stablecoin yield by having a Coinbase account or potentially more? It's nonsensical to think that anybody would choose a bank over the future centralized exchanges that exist out there like Coinbase. Not to mention that Coinbase does not participate in fractional reserve banking. They're not taking your money, dividing it up 100 different ways, and giving it to other people. The banks are. So I would feel threatened if I was Jamie Dimon because your sham is finally having light shed on it. People are starting to realize like this is complete junk. The banks are typically behind all kinds of nefarious activities going on. You look at the '08 financial crisis, whose fault was that? got bailed out by the government. And now, I mean, they're getting so greedy, they've got the audacity to come out and say Brian Armstrong's an asshole, essentially, because he won't let us rip off the American people. It's unbelievable. It really is. So I'm really curious to see how the Clarity Act unfolds or when it does. I mean, stable coins right now, I would say, are undoubtedly the most mainstream talking point in crypto. They are the only talking point right now that actually has institutional backing. They're ready for it. They are ready to not have to deal with the BS payment rails that they've been using forever. And I was talking to a small business owner a couple of weeks, and I asked him how much money he made through credit card revenue, and he gave me a number. It was a pretty significant number for a small business. And I said, now, how much do you have to pay in fees, or how much do you lose to fees to the current system? And he gave me another number that was significant. And I said to him, how would you like for that to be as close to zero as possible? And he's like, I mean, that would be a game changer. That would be absolutely enormous. And that is what stablecoins provide. Of course, they're not going to replace the credit card system overnight, but slowly but surely they will begin to gain quite a bit of momentum and save small business owners significant sums of money. So stablecoins, they get my stamp of approval. I think that there's a massive use case. I mean, I think that is probably the safest bet you could make on crypto, though it's difficult to directly invest in them. But I think that's the safest bet you can make, have the highest level of confidence in saying that this technology, this form of the technology is what retail, what mainstream individuals will be using on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not sure what the time frame is on that. Kind of similar to the AI conversation. You have individuals who are willing to take some risk and say, oh, this is cool technology. How do I adopt it? How do I implement it in my day-to-day life? And then you kind of go down the risk curve from there. And this is retail folks I'm talking about. And right now, it's typically only the tip of the spear, logically so, that is dipping their toes into both crypto and AI. And I think we're going to slowly work down that risk curve as time moves on. I think AI is going to do it very rapidly. I think crypto is going to do it much slower than AI, but innovations like stablecoins will probably move first. So you will probably see people who have no idea what crypto is. They know absolutely nothing, and they're risk averse using stablecoins before you would have, that same person trying to learn about smart contracts and or an average business trying to leverage smart contracts in their supply chain, say. A much more possible but complex topic of crypto. So we're moving down the risk curve. I have hope. It's a difficult time right now. Fear and greed sitting at 10. We're in extreme fear. We've been riding this wave for a long time, since October, down to extreme fear, little bit of a rise back up into semi-neutral, but really more just regular fear territories, and then dip back down to extreme fear. And we've been living this way for a while. It's not a fun way to live, especially when you have a significant amount of money invested in this market. You want to see it go up, number go up. That's always the best. But yeah, we'll have to play it by ear. And lastly, with a little bit of AI news, and I guess a small complaint from me, I'm being edged by GPT 5.6, and I cannot say that I enjoy it. I am waiting very eagerly for the release of this model. Opus 4.8, I would say, was a blunder. Though I'm not one of the Anthropic haters. I'm not tribalistic when it comes to AI. I don't say OpenAI or you're stupid, or Anthropic or you're stupid, or anything like that, like a lot of people do. Whatever the best model is the best model. I was exclusively Claude models until 5.5 was released. Everyone said, oh, use GPT 5.4 for OpenClaw. It was inoperable compared to Opus. That's just a fact. Opus 4.6 at the time was like, driving a Rolls Royce, and 5.4 was like driving a Honda Civic for OpenClaw. Maybe that's a little extreme. Maybe I'm just not good enough at it, but that's how I felt. And then 5.5 came out, and I would say it didn't feel as smooth as 4.7 did, but it was every bit as capable. It took a little bit for me to kind of get around some of the nuances about Opus that made it feel so good. I mean, Opus does such a good job at feeling like an actual person. You don't feel like you're talking to a robot. And its reasoning, I still think its reasoning is better for OpenClaw. I've never used it for Hermes. So, I mean, assuming they're the same, but maybe not. But for OpenClaw, I feel like its reasoning was better, especially its short-term reasoning, remembering something that you just talked about, little tiny detail, and not blundering around that detail. But that being said, there has never been an instance where GPT 5.5 has been unusable because of this, we'll call it slight less ability than Opus in short-term reasoning. It's every bit as good. It's just, it doesn't feel as polished, I would say, as Opus does at times. So, and now, Anthropic's in a tough spot because they've got the compute now from SpaceX, and they've been teasing Mythos, however you say it, forever. And their fear-based marketing, I feel like it's going to come back and bite them in the ass, because they essentially said Mythos is so powerful that we can't release it. Otherwise, people will use it for nefarious activity and the world will end. And so everyone's like, holy crap, this is insane. The smart people were like, yeah, I call bullshit. And now they're kind of like still trying to tease Mythos and saying like, oh, maybe we'll release like a slightly nerfed version of it to the public. Whatever. It's like, all right, your marketing tactics just kind of suck. I don't get it. OpenAI is doing such a good job. Sam Altman, whatever you think about him, and the whole thing probably is a ruse. I don't know. Maybe it's all an act, but like the way he interacts with people on X, the way that OpenAI interacts with people on X, they give out usage limit resets, they all kinds of stuff like that. They're just for the people, they're either pretending to be or they are. But regardless, it doesn't matter, because perception is reality, and that will carry you a long way. So I don't really remember where I was going with this. Goodness. GPT 5.6. I'm really eager for this to come out. I'm as silly as it sounds, and I think that this is a very important point of consumerism, especially as it pertains to AI. But I'm already chomping at the bit for what's next. Like, I remember when I first used OpenClaw, I was using Sonnet 4.6 as the orchestrator. And I was like, this is amazing. This is literal magic. And then it got old. And then it was Opus 4.6. I'm like, yeah, this is a big step, but I want more. And then GPT 5.5. And I've increased my, call it bandwidth, or my agent's bandwidth, and how many projects it's working on, how diligently it's working. 5.5 gave me that. And now I'm like, I want more. I'm like a druggie. I'm like, what's next? Like, I want 5.6 to absolutely blow my hair back. So I don't know. I'm a power user of AI. I'm a huge fan of AI. So I'm definitely not like the perfect example of a AI customer, because I'd say I'm more on the right side, towards the extreme on that spectrum. But like, using me as an example, what does this tell you about the AI market as a whole? Like, consumers are going to be so freaking hungry and thirsty for this stuff. And then the part that does pertain to everybody is, once you take the average Joe and you set him up with an agent, and he learns how to use that agent, and he sees how much easier his life has become because of it, it's going to be like the needle in the arm. Excuse the blunt analogy, but that's what it's going to be. They're going to want more and more and more. And there's literally not enough compute on the planet. So it's exciting stuff. I'm going to wrap it up there. This has been the Cedral Brief, episode 002. Again, I'm only going to save, call it, special episodes for full videos. A dream of mine would be to actually have a guest on the podcast. And for something like that, I would absolutely do video format. It'd be a lot longer than 10, 15 minutes. Yesterday's 001 was the first episode, so it was a little bit longer. There's video format. I was kind of just rambling. I rambled today as well. But so the daily posts, or however often I post, most of them will be sort of just news updates. This is what's happening in crypto. This is what's happening in AI. Not super structured. Like, these are just headlines I found interesting, and I think you might too, that sort of thing. That is what you will see from the Cedral Brief more often than not. So if you listen to this, thanks so much. Feel free to rate this podcast on Spotify. I don't really ever use Spotify except for music. So whatever you got to do to make this pop off on Spotify, do it. Like it, 5 stars, whatever it is. And then if I do post this on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe, knowing that there will be more, let's call it, exciting videos down the pipe. But anyways, that's it. This is the Cedral Brief, episode 002. Thanks for tuning in.